last few times that we've met with this man and chatted with this man, what he says went viral because Steelers fans are hanging on his every word and they're trying to figure out all this stuff. And then we also find out where he is rewatching Suits. So I don't know what the order you can figure it out, but the great Gerry Dulac is back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Gerry? Good to see you.
Rich, I'm fine. I will let you know that when I have guests on my golf radio show, I send everyone a dozen logoed golf balls for coming on. So I'll wait for my gift in a couple weeks from your show, if that's okay.
Well, what do you want, Gerry? I mean, we got T-shirts, we got hats, we got mug. You want a mug? I can send you a mug. Yes.
The only thing I want is the ability to be able to appear on your show. That's fine enough for me.
Well, here's what we'll do. If you make it, do the Steelers come out here to Los Angeles this year? They don't do that, do they?
No, Denver and Vegas are the furthest trips for them.
Okay, so the next time, whenever you're here in L.A., I'll make sure that when we book you, you'll be here, and we'll book a celebrity guest from the show Suits, so you can meet them.
Well, you can't ask for more than that.
Well, I cannot, however, get any royalty. That I can't do.
I didn't think you could pull that
card. I've got cards to pull, but not that one. Right. So, by the way, I love when we Chiron, you confirmed Suits guy. That's definitely one way to describe Gerry Dulac here. All right, so you're in Pittsburgh. You're in the facility. I know the room, in fact, in which you are currently Zooming. And so, what is going on there today? Is it mandatory? Where are the Steelers right now, Gerry?
Yeah, no, it's week 3 of their voluntary OTAs, day 2 of their 3-day this week, and so I am down here. Practice is starts pretty soon, and so I instead of doing the Zoom from the comfy confines of my office, I came down here to the facility so I could kill 2 birds with one stone.
And I appreciate that. So where are the Steelers right now on their starting quarterback for 2024? Gerry, where are they?
Rich, I don't think anything has changed from the moment they signed Russell Wilson, and he's the number 1 quarterback, and and Justin Fields is number 2, and it's not 1 and 1A. Their intention is that Russell Wilson will be the quarterback. Everybody wants to know: are they going to work in Justin Fields? What point do you think we might see him? Is there going to be a special package for him to utilize his skills? And I just, their plan is that Russell Wilson will be their starter week 1. And to me, the only way Justin Fields is going to play on any regular basis is 1, if Russell Wilson does not play very well, or 2, he gets injured. Otherwise, it's full steam ahead with Russ.
So there's no sense of a Justin Fields package at all in the offense? Sure.
It certainly it wouldn't surprise me, Rich. But knowing Mike Tomlin does not believe in taking his starting quarterback out of the game for special packages. No, I'm not going to sit here and say he won't do it, but that has not been his style. So I'm not expecting it. Now, maybe Arthur Smith can come up with a package or 2 here and there to utilize his special skills, Justin Fields' special skills. But I'm not going to hold my breath, only because I know what Mike Tomlin typically believes.
Well, I mean, what about putting him on the field at the same time? What about that idea?
Well, that would be a possibility. You mean using him like as a slash, as an H-back or wide receiver? Perhaps. But, again, he is not much of a gimmicky guy, Mike Tomlin. So I'm not going to sit here and say that would be a first, but I'm trying to think of some other gimmick plays over the years. And I'm not saying there haven't been some, but they're not jumping out at me right away. It's just not something that he typically believes in doing.
And what about the idea of, in this brave new kickoff world, that idea that kind of got bandied about? I don't know who was bandying or how it got out to bandy, but to put Justin Fields as one of the 2 return guys in a new kickoff world, where all you got to do is just get through one wave of defenders who are starting only about 10, 12 yards in front of wherever somebody's receiving the ball, and you can be off to the races. What about that idea?
Rich, that started by the backup running back, Jaylen Warren, who naively and somewhat ridiculously believed that would be a possibility. I can tell you the Steelers have no interest in putting their number 2 quarterback back to receive kicks with the possibility of an injury. And so that has been shot out of the air like a clay pigeon. And I didn't believe it for 1 second. And that a backup running back would believe that they would do that it was kind of surprising to me.
Well, the only reason why this sort of stuff gets mentioned or bandied about or talked about, well, I guess there's 2 reasons. One is that we're many of us are suffering sheer boredom waiting for football to be played again. But another one is the idea that anything could go for Pittsburgh, because if I had quizzed anybody in the Pittsburgh organization when they stepped off the field after losing the playoff game that a lot of people in our industry didn't think Pittsburgh was going to make last year. But if I quizzed anybody in that organization and attached them to sodium pentothal and got a truthful answer, they would not have said, yeah, our first choice to start the season at quarterback, and the first thing we're going to do is hand the reins over to Russell Wilson. I don't think anybody would have said that. So now we're here in this situation, and that's why I think anything could go, Gerry. Like, how did we get here?
Well, I agree with your premise, Rich, in that, to sit there and think you're going to continue to do things the way you've always done them when you haven't won a playoff game in 7 seasons and you've lost your last 5, I believe 3 of which have been at home, and you've been bumped out in the first round in your first game. Yeah, you can't keep doing things the same way. And the fact that they, I don't want to say overhauled their roster, but let's face it, they were the most significant changes they've made in a long, long time, maybe ever in the offseason. So that would tell you, okay, we need to do things differently. When they signed Russell Wilson, they didn't sign Russell Wilson with the intention they were going to get Justin Fields. That only came about when, Kenny Pickett basically forced his way out of town, and they thought, okay, see you later. And they shipped him off to Philly, and then they made the trade for Justin Fields. So when they brought Russell Wilson in, with his resume, the idea is, okay, 10-7 and getting eliminated again in the postseason isn't working. And so we need to try something different. And we are going to start with the most important position on the team. So pretty much the idea, even though at the time they had alluded to Kenny Pickett that he was going to battle for the starting position, I don't think there's any question, talk about being naive. Anybody who thought they were bringing Russell Wilson in, or Russell Wilson wanting to come in as a backup, just wasn't going to work.
So, Gerry Dulac, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette here on the Rich Eisen Show. Any sense of how he's going to look, how he is looking, and how he is taken to Steeler, football, Gerry?
Well, I will tell you, he's really taken to the city, and he's put himself out in a number of different places, including concerts, baseball games, and whatnot. So, I mean, he, look, Russ is a pro. He knows how the game works. So he's made himself very visible. He's acclimated himself to the teammates. He says all the right things about the city. He has certainly embraced it. I'm sure for now they've embraced him. We'll see what happens once they start playing football. But, I'm not a big fan of football in shorts and OTAs. I've always felt that I won't evaluate anybody till at least training camp. But what you see so far is a guy who knows what he's doing, is a 9-time Pro Bowler. As we know, he's won a Super Bowl. He comes out on that field and he takes charge. And the players sense it, they see it, they feel it. And that's the biggest attribute he brings. And, Rich, 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions last year. You know how many teams would take that from their quarterback? Quite a few, including the Steelers. So does he still have something left in his tank? Well, based on last season, you would have to think that he does. And so we'll see going forward. We'll see how he meshes with Arthur Smith's offense. But, hey, everybody, all signs are pointing up and everybody's excited. But again, I will caution, it's June. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and then obviously when the Broncos released him and took on the biggest dead cap hit in the history of dead caps and hits and things of that nature, I don't know, anybody would think, okay, he's going to find a spot and it's going to be his role in Pittsburgh, but that is in fact the case. And obviously he must be over the moon about that. Justin Fields, different story. I think when everyone was at the same time having this conversation about Russ, Jerry, the conversation was maybe the Bears do somehow stick with Justin Fields, and if they don't, he's going to go somewhere where he can start right away and have the career that everybody thought he could have in Chicago when he was a top draft choice. Instead, you just mentioned he's not getting on the field unless Russ is hurt or somehow completely ineffectual. And he's traded for a draft choice, fifth-round draft choice, and not even in this year's draft. How is he handling everything, Jerry?
I mean, again, so far, so good. We'll see how it plays out. What I'm curious to see, Rich, is how they handle this going forward. You've heard me tell you before that both the Steelers' intention and Russell Wilson's intention are to sign a longer deal after the season. That is their intention. Now, what do they do with Justin Fields? I do not believe they brought Justin Fields in for a one-year rental. We knew, obviously, they weren't going to pick up his fifth-year option, not at that price. But, I mean, I don't want to say – I'm not going to sit here and say I expect them to sign him to like a two-year deal. But to make a trade for that guy with that skill set and to be able to, hinge your bets a little bit, with where Russell Wilson is, I just don't see them bringing in Justin Fields and after this season letting him go. And then it becomes the question, okay, what does Justin Fields want from his career? But I think despite his skill set and his talent, and you've heard me tell you before too, Rich, when he was coming out, the Steelers loved Justin Fields. They loved him as much as any quarterback in the draft. Of course, they were never going to get a shot at him. But let's not forget, he's won only 10 games in 3 seasons in Chicago. And that's hard to do. There's a reason why he's only won 10 games. And let's not forget that.
Gerry Dulac, a few minutes left with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reporter and Steelers Radio Network host right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So you just mentioned how the Steelers did not pick up Justin Fields' option, expensive. And you can understand that, I guess, based on the circumstances. Why did they not pick up Naji Harris's fifth-year option, Jerry?
I was a surprise to a degree, and then again, I wasn't, because of the financial nature of what we see going on with running backs. Mike Tomlin loves Naji Harris, and I thought it could be a bit of a battle between management and Mike Tomlin as to what they want to do. But I don't think they've given up on Naji Harris, and I expect them to sign him, Rich, to some type of 2-year deal that will maybe at least make up for, and probably will make up for the $6.9 million or whatever that exact number was that he would have made if they picked up his option. So they're not ready to give up on him. They wanted to see how he fits in Arthur Smith's offense. I mean, I just think it's a natural fit. I mean, we saw what happened with Derrick Henry and when Arthur Smith was the OC in Tennessee. Naji Harris is the closest thing that you have to Derrick Henry in the NFL. So to me, how is he going to perform in Arthur Smith's offense? I would be surprised if he didn't have a fourth 1,000-yard season, and even more. I think he's probably set up to have his best season yet. So they're not ready to give up on him. I don't think they'll let him go. I think you might see them try to sign him to some type of 2-year deal before they get to next season.
Well, for his sake, I hope that happens because, ask any Falcons fan over the last couple of years, and they'll tell you Arthur Smith likes handing the ball off to multiple backs, and they've got Jalen Warren and Cordero Patterson, somebody who we've seen what Arthur Smith can do with him if he is healthy. So you've got that. Obviously, I'm biased. I think drafting Roman Wilson is fantastic.
I agree.
Van Jefferson is going to get a shot here that, I'm sure he was eager to get in Los Angeles with the Rams and did not get. I mean, what's your general sense of how this offense is going to look? Because I'm sure that's the main concern for a lot of Steeler fans right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of Steeler fans are worried that their wide receiver room is very thin. I would not I disagree with that from this standpoint. What do you think the people in Kansas City thought last year with their wide receiver core when all those guys defected over the last 2 years? Last time I checked, didn't seem to bother them or Patrick Mahomes. They expect George Pickens to take another step and be a star in the league. And I'm with you, Rich. I like Roman Wilson. You talk about a guy who is a perfect number 2 type of receiver, kind of a Hines Ward type with the physical nature of his game. He catches everything thrown at him, loves to play in traffic. That was Hines Ward's signature. I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's going to be Hines Ward, but I like the signing. The draft pick. And, they brought in a couple veterans. You mentioned Van Jefferson, Kez Watkins. And, they still, Calvin Austin's in his 3rd year, but it's really his 2nd year, and he's a speed guy. So, again, we'll see how Arthur Smith utilizes those guys. I'm not going to tell you it's the greatest wide receiver room in team history, but I think it has some nice potential with the addition of Roman Wilson. And, they'll keep their fingers crossed that Calvin Austin, that they can utilize his speed the way they envisioned when they drafted him a couple of years ago.
Man, they drafted Fatano, too. He's really good.
Right.
And you stick him at left tackle, right? And then Peyton Wilson, I know he has some injury questions, but boy, is he a thumper. And, he's second on the depth chart to Alex Highsmith. My goodness. And Patrick Queen is a free agent signing that I think few people are talking about, with TJ Watt wanting to win Defensive Player of the Year again after, he thinks, and many Steeler fans believe, and his brother definitely does, that he got robbed for DPOY. So overall, I imagine it's sky-high feelings in that building where you are right now.
Yeah, I think,
Gerry?
Rich, I think the addition of Patrick Queen was the biggest move they made in the offseason, because now it not only elevates their defense, it fills a spot that has really been a rotating door annually since Ryan Shazier's career-ending injury. So to me, that was the biggest move they made in the offseason. And you mentioned Peyton Wilson. I tell you what, I think that's not only potentially the steal of the Steelers draft, it could be the steal of the NFL draft. This guy is not only a thumper, he can run. And yeah, he's had injuries issues, but not the past 2 years. And I will tell you, Rich, if the Steelers red flagged him at all, they would not draft him. They've always believed that way since Dan Rooney was in charge. And if there were any questions about him medically, they would have passed on him. And to get him where they got him, to me, I think, as I said, potentially the biggest steal of the draft.
All right. And so could this season go so well that some Steeler fans are happy that Mike Tomlin's there, Gerry? I mean, could that possibly happen, Gerry? Is that
finally not want to throw them out of town? The way I look at it, Rich, they were 10-7 last year and made the postseason.
Right.
Right now, they are a better football team. So you can go from there is the way I look at it. 11-6, maybe with a few breaks, 12-5, who knows? But there's no question they're a better football team than last year's 10-7 squad.
Gerry, thanks for the time, man. Appreciate it. We'll catch up with you when training camp hits, if you don't mind. Look for us.
Rich, you got it, man. It's always good chatting with you.
Right back at you. That's Gerry Dulac. Everybody should check him out on Twitter. He was also talking about Cam Sutton has been signed, or he's about to be signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. That's Gerry Dulac, everybody. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.